I'd like to call to order the Naperville Park District Board of Commissioners meeting December 16th, 2014. Time is 6:01. Roll call, Jay.
President Riley.
Here.
Vice President Ori.
Here.
Commissioner Egan.
Present.
Commissioner Janner.
Here.
Commissioner Heidi.
Here.
Commissioner Todd.
Here.
Commissioner Young. Here.
Do we have anybody from the public signed up to speak?
Move to adjourn to executive session to discuss personnel under 2C1 of the Open Meetings Act.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Jackie, call the roll, please.
6:01. Vice President Ori.
Aye.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Commissioner Egan.
Yes.
Commissioner Janner.
Yes.
Commissioner Heidi.
Yes.
Commissioner Todd.
Yes.
President Riley.
Yes.
Just need.
Okay, I'd like to call to order the Naperville Park District Board of Commissioners special meeting, December 16th, 2014. Time is 6:18. Can you call the roll, please?
President Riley.
Here.
Vice President Ori.
Here.
Commissioner Egan.
Present.
Commissioner Janner.
Here.
Commissioner Heidi.
Here.
Commissioner Todd.
Here.
Commissioner Young. Here.
Okay, the next item we have is the approval of the treasurer's report.
Move to approve the October 2014 Treasurer's
Need
Report.
to pull item J.
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry. I should listen.
What?
Second.
30 seconds or whatever. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Jackie, call the roll, please.
Vice President Ori.
Aye.
Commissioner Todd.
Yes.
Commissioner Egan.
Yes.
Commissioner Janner.
Yes.
Commissioner Heidi.
Yes.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
President Riley.
Yes.
Okay.
Now we have the consent agenda. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda?
I would like to pull item J.
And I,
You already put it in. Okay. Just one.
aye,
Aye.
item I, not I is a yes.
You want item I?
Aye, I is an English.
Is this Scrivener errors or?
I've already made the changes.
She already made the
Do you
changes.
still want to pull
Yours
it?
is- We're still with J.
Pardon me?
We need to pull J then.
I need to abstain because I wasn't there,
What?
the minutes, right?
Yeah, we don't need to pull it. I don't need to.
I don't have to.
You've changed.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and that was the Carillon report. Riverwalk, Commissioner report. Okay.
Because you don't need it.
No, we don't need to. Already made changes.
Well, we are pulling aye for
Unless
legal
anyone cares.
consideration. Okay.
Move to accept consent agenda items A through H and item J.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the consent agenda items. Any discussion? Jackie, call the roll, please.
Vice President Ori.
Aye.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Commissioner Egan.
Yes.
Commissioner Janner.
Yes.
Commissioner Heidi.
Yes.
Commissioner Todd.
Yes.
President Riley.
Yes.
Move to accept consent agenda items as delineated.
This is a voice vote. All in favor?
I need a second for that, please.
Second.
Oh, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, under unfinished business, we have item I from the consent agenda. Someone will entertain a motion for someone to,
Move to approve item I, approval of agreement with Ed Program.
Second.
motion and a second. Discussion on the motion.
I'm not gonna support it, so I just need to pull out and vote no.
Any other discussion on the motion? Jackie, call the roll, please.
Vice President Ori.
Aye.
Commissioner Todd.
Yes.
Commissioner Egan.
No.
Commissioner Janner.
Yes.
Commissioner Heidi.
Yes.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
President Riley.
Yes. Okay, the next item we have is the 2015 Budget and Appropriation Public Hearing and Ordinance Adoption. I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing on the 2015 Budget and Appropriation Ordinance number 857.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Jackie, would you call the roll, please?
Vice President Ori.
Aye.
Commissioner Todd.
Yes.
Commissioner Egan?
Yes.
Commissioner Danner?
Yes.
Commissioner Heidi?
Yes.
Commissioner Young?
Yes.
President Riley?
Yes. A quorum being present, I will now call to order the public hearing on the 2015 combined annual budget and appropriation ordinance. The budget was prepared and made available to the public for inspection for at least 30 days at the administrative office of the Park District and on the district's website. A notice of this budget hearing was published in the Daily Herald on December 5th, 2014, in accordance with the requirements of the Park District Code, and a note in compliance with the Open Meetings Act was also prepared and distributed in accordance with all legal requirements. The purpose of the hearing is to give the public an opportunity to be heard with regard to the planned budget and appropriation for the coming fiscal year. Once public comments have been received, the board may immediately comment or reserve its comments to when the ordinance is formally presented to the board for board consideration. Hearing is now open to questions from the audience. Hearing nothing. I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing on the 2015 budget and return to the regular business of the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Jackie, call the roll, please.
Vice President Ori?
Aye.
Commissioner Todd?
Yes.
Commissioner Egan?
Yes.
Commissioner Danner?
Yes.
Commissioner Heidi?
Yes.
Commissioner Young?
Yes.
President Riley?
Yes.
Move to approve the 2015 budget and appropriation ordinance number 857 in the budgeted amount of $55,924,199 and the appropriated amount of $61,516,622.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion on the motion.
I won't be supporting the budget for a couple different reasons. First and foremost, the underfunded actuarial accrued liability is currently at $2.7 million. If that isn't paid, our balance will be charged 7.5%. I acknowledge that we're funded according to the cap rate 85.09%, which is a tremendous percentage. If I were in my corporate world, I was 85% funded, so be it, but IMRF is a conglomeration, and we're going to get charged 7.5% on that balance. Therefore, we're going to be out $200,000 on that, plus they'll re-amortize that again. So it's a credit card balance. It's not huge money, but it's $200,000 that we could save ourselves. We're certainly not getting that on any investments that we're making. Secondly, with the changes that we're making to the golf, you know, in basically making it a program but leaving it out on its side, I disagree with those accounting changes. Zero-sum game certainly, but if we're going to try and analyze our business and try and make sure that we're consuming the resources in the most appropriate manner, we need to leave those allocations in place. So, from my perspective, we're not going to be able to do that as effectively as we were before. So, with that dissertation, I'll be supporting the budget.
Thank you for sharing those comments with us again. Any other discussion on the motion?
Well, on the matter of the unfunded liability for IMRF, the Finance Committee discussed that, and through taking a look at all the measurements, we are right on course or above standards and have been recognized by both the auditor and Moody's, was it, Sue? That said we're right on track and we're in solid financial shape. I kind of equated to that 80,000 square foot house that we're building and a mortgage that we got out on that, and so we need to wisely allocate our resources so that, yes, there may be a drawdown on the interest. If we paid off the mortgage early, we probably have to pay less dollars there, but we also need some funds. And I think our capital forecast for the next 10 years shows that sort of apparent or perceived fund balances that might be considered excess are certainly not going to be in that position within the next 2 years. So respectfully disagree with Bill's position on IMRF.
Any other discussion on the motion?
I agree with the golf issue. I think we raised that last time, but I think the budget is well done and I'll support.
There's additional comment. on the last page, Exhibit B, and the following page that we discuss on the tax levy, there seems to be a little bit of differences, and Sue explained that to me. The general real estate taxes, it shows that we expect $20.9 million in revenue from real estate taxes, and yet our tax levy is only $19 million along the way. Two things come into play. The expectation is probably a realistic number, which includes the $2.4 million in bond issues that we've already passed by way of another ordinance, not necessarily, and so it's not necessarily repeated in this ordinance. And the difference then, the 19 million, is also includes a what is euphemistically called a ballooning of the levy in order for us to capture all of the potential increase in EAV. And so that is, I think, about a 10% over and above what we calculated should be. So that number is probably higher. And if you count everything, the number 20.9 million is lower if you take that aggregate and apply it. So the two numbers differ, and they have different reasons for the difference.
No further discussion, Jackie, would you call the roll, please?
Vice President Ori?
Aye.
Commissioner Todd?
Yes.
Commissioner Egan?
No.
Commissioner Janner?
Yes.
Commissioner Heidi?
Yes.
Commissioner Young?
Yes.
President Rodrick?
Yes. Now into the new business, approval of the 2014 tax levy ordinance number 858.
Move to approve the 2014 tax levy ordinance number 858 totaling $19,054,828.
Second.
A motion and a second, any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Jackie, would you call the roll, please?
Vice President Ori?
Aye.
Commissioner Todd?
Yes.
Commissioner Egan?
Yes.
Commissioner Janner?
Yes.
Commissioner Heidi?
Yes.
Commissioner Young?
Yes.
President Rodrick?
Yes. Next we have discussion items. First we have the program guide delivery contract.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to tee this up with the board. I will be bringing to the January 8th meeting the contract for the program guide delivery. For the next round, it is going to be a 3-year contract. On November 28th, we held the bid opening, and we received one bid, which is pretty typical of this process, simply because there are not a lot of companies out there clearly that do this. We sent the bid packet initially to our current provider. 2 other companies requested a bid packet. One company let us know that they were not qualified based on the bid specs. The other one did not submit a bid because they were not interested in doing so. So the recommendation will be to go with door-to-door direct again for the delivery of the program guide. They have kept their rates steady since the last 3-year bid, so there's no escalation there.
The other day, I think someone from the Naperville Development Partnership mentioned the dining guide is satellited on us. Do they help defray some of the costs?
They do. For the one time a year, it goes with the winter guide, and yes, they do pay for their portion.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you.
Next item is the IMRF voluntary payments to reduce the unfunded actuarial accrued liability. So you want to kind of tee that up and you could follow through on this?
Sure. Okay, so as you all know, you received, and Bill already talked about it, the memorandum from IMRF about our ability, and we can do this every year. We've always had the ability to prepay or pay down what's unfunded on a voluntary basis, up and above what the payment is required through our rate every year. The Finance Committee met, we talked about it. The pros, as Bill had mentioned, if IMRF does well, and that unfunded is lower, we won't get charged that 7.5% on a larger balance. It would be on a smaller balance, or 0 if we were 100% funded. Another advantage is, although there's a 2-year lag, if you prepay that just like you would a mortgage, we should see a rate decrease, depending something major happening in 2 years, that would be reflected. So part of the, I'll say, as the CFO there says, part of the gamble is IMRF has to make more than 7.5%. They're very well managed. Over time and with a 5-year smoothing, that's probably likely that they will, on a 5-year smoothing average. This year, alone on a market basis, they are probably not going to make 7.5, but with a 5-year smoothing built into an actuarial return, they will. They're going to make over 7.5. So we'll still receive a credit, about 1% on our opening balance, even though we're going to be charged 7.5, and we should still see our unfunded of 2.7 decreasing this year because of that 5-year smoothing. The negatives that we talked about, as Ron alluded to, is you're taking, we have a piece of pie is the way we talked about it, we have money going different places. So when we pay IMRF any kind of prepayment, it's there, it's gone, we're never going to get that money back, can't be used for anything else. So you have to commit to, we're doing this, we're gambling, maybe a little bit, maybe it's not even a gamble, but how are we going to use those resources? We looked at our fund balances for all of our funds, and probably more importantly, we looked at our 10-year capital plan and what we're going to be anticipating over the next 10 years, the debt we're going to be borrowing in a couple years, and where you put those monies. If we were not 85% funded, if IMRF was not close to 95, 96 as a whole funded, so healthy, it would be something to consider to get our fund in good shape. A couple things we talked about, there's no advantage to employees. They're just as well protected under state statute if we're at 50% funded or 100% funded. So there's no advantage there. We also talked about a con is you do pay that down, but it's always a moving target. You can't assume that if we were to pay down 100% and say as of this date we're fully funded, well as of a week later when things change or a year later, we're again going to have an unfunded liability. So based on all of that, and I won't speak for the committee members, but staff came to the committee with the recommendation that we do not at this point, because of how well we are funded, and that unfunded is going to come down on its own, and our rate is lower than the average, and it should come down again in the next couple of years, that we're going to use those resources for capital and not use them to prepay our unfunded portion. And thirdly, I'll just comment a little bit about Moody's and our rating, and a couple things that were important to them. When Moody's comes in, they do their own calculations of your pension fund. They don't look to even our audit. They don't look to IMRF to tell them how good the district is. They run their own ratios, and they commented we're strong on our pension funding, but also, importantly, is our different sources that we have for capital, the ongoing contribution to capital, and our strong reserves support that AAA bond rating.
Questions, comments?
And the committee supported the staff's recommendation, and stayed the course.
And
we're also a benefit to now sit on the board, so we've got a pretty good in-house set of eyes to keep track of.
So I don't disagree when you wear that set of lenses, right? IMRF is well-funded. It's not a question of employees. What it really comes down to is we've chosen a very expensive form of financing for ourselves. Our bonds on the market that we just released, 3.5%, 2.5%.
2 to 3. Yeah.
We are financing ourselves with a 7% lever. So we should have borrowed more to fund it, and we've got to be careful. I agree with Sue. So I would be just as much against a pension asset, right? So there is some range in there, and a lot of this fell out of 2008, right, when the bottom fell out. So but we've never really focused in on this stuff. And the heart attack came to me is that 7.5% charge. I looked at it from my corporate eyes back when I worked from Pratt. We're 85% funded, we're 83%, whatever the case may be. But that's our own pension fund. We fund it as we need to, and there's no charge for not being part of it. Being part of the conglomeration, that's a very real charge because everybody's living and dying off that main pool, if you will. So I don't think it's a question of funding, and I agree that the employees are protected. It comes down to we're going to get charged $175,000, $200,000 for kicking the ball down the thing. So if we had the money, the discussion, I wouldn't say we write a check for $2.7 million, certainly. We would have to come up with something, but we need to be looking at getting that down. And to Sue's point, as that average comes, the tide rises for all ships. But I do not agree with pulling that expensive financing arm. And shame on me for not realizing that that charge was there.
Right, but we will get more than our 7.5 back. I mean, we're gonna be charged that, but there's gonna be an offset credit, at least this year. What happened in '08 that's just a little scary is people did pay some of theirs down, so if they don't make 7.5%, you get charged the difference and more on that higher balance that you have funded. So you're right, there's a balance and there's a little bit, it's not always a sure thing. It's not a sure thing that we're always gonna benefit from prepaying more.
But if we were closer to break even or at zero, that credit that's now getting offset would be much larger. Because the credit comes off of the total balance that we're,
Yeah.
our piece of that overall pie.
Right, and I think just one more thing is really, we have resources and where do you put them?
Okay, so my question for you, Bill, is, so that you have the 2.7, you're saying, okay, maybe not all of it, but what would you do? 1 million? And where would you pull it from?
Well, that's when you come back, so we in the last refinancing that we did, now we did a footprint refunding, that savings is slowly coming. I would have been suggesting that we take $1.5 million to $2 million and take that gamble at a 2.5%, 3%
So
rate.
you would have had us borrow more from the bonds instead?
Correct, with staying in the same footprint. So I think it's a consistent argument for me, but I reserve the right to be wrong. It goes back even to the collapse and consume argument, right? It goes down to maintaining, we keep hearing, oh, we gotta maintain this credit rating, we gotta maintain, and I don't disagree with that, but you maintain your debt and keep it low, you're gonna get a AAA bond rating, because how we handle our reserves, it's also very much a large function of our taxpayers, right? We have a great tax base here. So it comes down to how do we wanna manage that piece of it. So instead of just getting the budget, we've got to be looking at these other things now as we go through the next 2 years that are out there. Because at the end of the day, whatever we're going to do, we have to pay it by the end of December, right? Can't pay it in January because you won't get the credit. They have to wait a full year. So that payment would have to come at this time if you were managing your money responsibly.
To me, I don't think it's a right or wrong. I think it's a judgment call on the allocation of resources.
And it's a plan issue, really, because we couldn't really stop and change right now on the budget. We can think about it differently going forward. But you can't really, at this point, at this juncture.
Well, if the board wanted to, we've got 20 million, 19 million in reserves, we certainly could say, take $1.5 million from this and deficit spend this year and pay it down if that was the will of the board to avoid.
But we recognize that the bond rate, the Moody's appreciates the size of our reserves.
Well, you always want to lend to the people who don't need the money, right? That's the moral of the story.
Any other comments, questions, input? This is the most important task of the evening.
I'm waiting for further
You're like-
discussion, you know? Give everybody a
You're
chance.
a sitcom.
Can I have a second, please?
Is there a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Mark, can you check that out?